Now let's look at a completely different kind of data. Uh, what you're looking at here are data, again, from the U.S. Census Bureau, showing you what percentage of the Rutherford County population falls into each of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 education level categories. So everybody in Rutherford County is going to fall into one of these 7 categories. And, and the percentages that describe each of those categories are going to add up to 100%. So these figures are fractions or portions of the whole population, and that's the key difference to see here. If you're looking at something like this, these population figures over time, if I add up these figures here in column B, I'm not going to get the total population of Rutherford County. I'm going to get the total of the various counts of the Rutherford County population between now and 1970, which isn't really all that helpful. But over here, you're talking about parts of a whole. The sort of slices of a whole pie, for example. And that kind of suggests the most common type of chart to represent this kind of data. It's a pie chart. To get one, you would just highlight the data as usual, choose Insert and Chart. And again, Google Sheets is going to guess what you want. Here it didn't guess right. This is a line chart for some reason. Let's change it to a basic pie chart. Here we go. And you know how a pie chart works. You've seen probably thousands of pie charts. Each slice represents the portion of the entire data that's represented by that particular type of data. So this green slice right here, for example, represents the 23% of the Rutherford County population who has some college education. Not a, they graduated high school, got a high school diploma, did a little bit of college, but didn't get an associate's degree or didn't get a bachelor's degree, a 4-year degree. So, so that's a pie chart. And again, you can edit this thing just like you would edit anything else. You can change the title to something like this. Or whatever you want to do. You could add a subtitle and so on. You can change the colors of the slices. You can, of course, stretch it out a little bit. Be careful doing that because the less room you leave for these labels here, then the more likely they are to truncate. Don't do that. But so that works pretty well. And of course, as you mouse over them after you embed the chart, you're going to see something like this, and that's pretty cool. Now, keep in mind, though, that there are some limitations here. Increasingly, graphic designers are telling us not to use pie charts, and there's a couple of good reasons for that. One is when you look at a pie chart, it can get a little difficult to tell which slices are bigger than which other slices. Like, it's pretty easy to see that this yellow slice here is a lot bigger than this red slice here. But it's not so easy to tell the difference between the yellow, the green here, and whatever that is, that kind of teal, bluish green. If you look at the labels, it's easy enough to see that this is the biggest one, 27.8%. And let's see, here's 23%, so that's the second biggest, and here's 22%. But you can see that it's just a little bit hard to tell because it's hard to compare these different areas here. And that's one problem with a pie chart. Designers say, look, we're wasting a lot of space here to convey this information. And notice how you kind of have to add especially if some of the slices are similar in size, you kind of have to add these labels here so that people can get a feel for what's going on. One solution is to sort the pie charts, the slices, according, in some kind of order. For example, here I could choose data and sort range and sort the data by the Rutherford County education level, maybe in, let's go with descending order here. Okay, so that makes it a little bit easier because now they're ordered from smallest to largest. In kind of a counterclockwise fashion here. So now I can go around and go, okay, well, let's see, that must be the biggest one. Sure enough, that's the second biggest, third, and so forth, and all the way around. If you go clockwise, it's a little bit easier. So that's one solution, still not a perfect solution. Another possible solution is to modify the chart a little bit and instead of a pie chart, choose something called a donut chart. That's what this is right here. And all that does is that puts a big hole in the center of the pie chart, but it makes the areas a little bit perhaps easier to compare. Now it's a teeny bit easier perhaps to see that this one here is bigger than this one, which is bigger than this one. And it would be even more helpful again if you sorted them in some kind of order, from highest to lowest or from lowest to highest. But you have a lot of the same limitations here as you have with a regular pie chart. Plus, it's still taking up an awful lot of real estate to communicate this information. Notice that this label here, this some college label, has gotten truncated. See the 3 dots right there? Because there's just not enough room for everything that this chart needs in order to communicate. So what a lot of graphic designers are saying now is just don't use a pie chart. Use something like this. This is called a bar chart. It's kind of like a column chart that's been flipped on its side. And now, if you think about it, it's really easy now to tell that high school graduate category is the biggest category in Rutherford County, because you can sort of compare the edges here and see that that's certainly the tallest one. That this one comes in second and that one comes in third. It's really easy. It's even easier if you sort them, as we did a minute ago, from, let's see, go Rutherford, and I think if you go from descending order, you get you get that. So then the tallest, or sorry, the longest bar ends up on top. So now it's especially easy to see that high school graduates. Oops, I've got a typo there. It's not high school grads. It's high school grads. Let me take care of that. There we go. Now it's especially easy to see what the biggest education category is and what the smallest one is. It says folks here who didn't get past the 9th grade. So in some ways that's probably better. It takes up a whole lot less real estate, and it's a whole lot easier to figure out than that pie chart. So that might be a good way to go. All right. So let me undo that sort there. There we go. Well, I did the grad thing there. There we go. I've got it down here too. Hold on while I edit my my presentation data. Gee whiz. There we go. All right. So that's one approach. Now, what if you have? Let me just set this over here. What if you have something like this, where you've got, just like we did before, you've got the education levels here, and you've got Rutherford County's numbers here, but you also have numbers for 2 more counties, Davidson and Williamson, and you want to somehow get them in the mix in that one single graphic, so that now we can compare these 3 counties. A pie chart's not going to work, because you would have to have like an individual pie chart for each of these. So so what's the alternative? Well, you could, let's see, you could try that bar chart that we just looked at. Let's see, where's that? In fact, that's what it's going to give us by default here. So now we have a bar for each county. The blue is Davidson, the red is Rutherford, and the kind of orange is Williamson. But you have to really squint at this to make sense of it, right? To see that what the biggest education group is in each county. It's plainly, for Williamson, it's pretty easily, it's this bachelor's category. For Rutherford, let's see, I guess it's still that high school grad category. And for Davidson, maybe it's the bachelor category. Yeah, right here, the blue one. But, I had to kind of work at that. So maybe there's an easier way. Let's pick a different kind of chart. Instead of that bar chart, let's go with a stacked bar chart, this one right here, okay? So now we have a different color for each county, blue for Davidson, red for Rutherford, and orange, I guess that is, for Williamson. It's still kind of hard to see, but at least I know going up and down here, I can compare the blue colors to get the figures for Davidson. So, maybe it's a little bit easier now to see that the biggest category in Davidson is that bachelor's degree compared to the high school grad. But it's still a little bit tough. But watch this. Let me go to the Edit Chart button here. scroll all the way down here. I'm on setup, which is the kind of main landing page, and I'm going to check the switch rows and columns box right here. Okay, so now we have something that makes comparison perhaps easiest of all. Now we have all the ninth grade percentages here in blue, all stacked up in roughly the same place, and so I can kind of easily see what's what here. And it makes it easy to look horizontally and compare the width of each band and see that now I can see that in Davidson County the bachelor's degree is clearly the biggest category. In Rutherford it looks like maybe a toss-up between these two, but a little quick comparison and I can see that it's some college. Oh no, sorry, I was wrong. It's it's the high school graduate here, the big yellow one. And then in Williamson County, the bachelor's degree is clearly the biggest one. So that's maybe a little bit easier to deal with. You can also add this. Let's see. Remember that compare mode that we looked at before? It's here under chart style. If I choose compare mode, then this is what happens. See now. When I roll over the Davidson County bar, I get all the different numbers for Davidson County categories, and it's pretty easy to scan down through there and see that the bachelor's degree is the big number, and likewise for Rutherford and for Williamson. So that helps a lot too. And again, you can edit these charts, these colors. I'm not sure those are the loveliest colors I've ever seen in a chart. You can change those around, and you can also change up the title and so forth here, just like you can with any other kind of chart. Still a little complicated just because there are so many categories. And one thing you might consider when you have more than about 5 categories of something that you're trying to display in this way would be to collapse the categories a little bit, and that's what I've done down here. Notice what I've done here is I've simply taken the ninth and the 9th to 12th grade numbers here, the 4.4 for Davidson and 6.5, and I've just added them. I just did it with a basic formula, just like this. I just came to the cell and I did equal sum. That's a function for adding up things. And then I highlighted those two values, the 9th and less than 9th and the 9th to 12th grade percentages, and hit enter. And I got 10.9%. And then I copied that down the column here. So it did that for, well, actually I didn't copy it down the column because some of these work a little bit differently. But I was able to copy it horizontally across the row, and it did the same thing for Rutherford and the same thing for Williamson. So anyway, the point is I used some Excel, some spreadsheet functions to quickly collapse the data into just 5 categories instead of the original 7. So now I have less than high school graduate, a high school graduate, some college. That would be people who went to college but didn't get a degree, or people who got an associate's degree, a 2-year degree, and then bachelor's broken out and graduate broken out differently. But if I graph this in the same way that I graphed these over here, watch what happens. Let's see here. And okay, so it's still a little complex, but less so because I have fewer categories to deal with. Now it's a whole lot easier to kind of compare the sizes of the different categories. So that works for a pie chart too, by the way. If you are dead set on using a pie chart, one way to improve a pie chart is to reduce the number of pie slices in the chart. Makes it a bit easier to read. On any of these kinds of representations, you don't really want to go more than about 7 categories. 5 is probably ideal, 5 or fewer. So that's a different way of representing this kind of data. So to recap, you've learned in the previous video how to make a line chart, and even a line chart that has multiple lines for different entities, different counties, or whatever you're graphing. And here you've seen a couple of different ways to represent this kind of data, the data where you have you're somehow expressing percentages or portions of a whole You can either use a pie chart, you can use a column chart, or what we're doing here, which is a stacked column chart, which enables you to show basically a bar chart for a whole bunch of different entities, like these three different counties. All right, so I hope you've enjoyed looking at these different graphic formats, and you've got a lesson waiting for you that will require you to produce some of these. And good luck with that.